Is faith delusional? Many atheists say faith is delusional, while many other atheists say those atheists sound stupid for saying it. And of course, atheists don't think they are delusional. But who is right? Well, first off, let's define our words. Words can have multiple unrelated usages. For example, a boot can be footwear or it can be the compartment of a car. So to keep things clear, we will only be dealing with these words in the context of belief. Okay, what is belief? Let's check the definition. Belief: an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. All right, so a belief is just thinking something is true. Simple enough. Now let's look at faith. Faith: strong or unshakable belief in something not based on reason or evidence. So for a belief to qualify as faith, it must meet three criteria. It must have no evidence, must not be irrational, and that belief must not be open to change. Fair enough. Now what is delusion? Delusion: unfounded and irrational beliefs held despite evidence. So, does delusion meet the criteria? Well, no evidence, check. Not rational, check. Not open to change, also check. It would seem the two words mean the same thing, and that in the common usage of the language, it would be accurate saying faith is delusional. Now hold on, some of you might be saying. Common usage and technical medical usage aren't the same thing. And yes, sometimes that is the case. So let's look at the medical usage of the word delusion. The DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, Revision 5, which is the current version of the book defining psychological terms and conditions used by the American Psychiatric Association, defines delusion as fixed beliefs that are not amenable to change in the light of conflicting evidence. Looks like in this case the medical, technical definition is pretty much exactly the same as the common usage definition. At this point, some of you may already be furiously typing, "That's not fair, the DSM gives exemptions for cultural and religious beliefs." And again, that's true. It does. But not all forms of faith are religious or cultural. There are superstitions, ideologies, conspiracy theories, mysticism, etc. The DSM doesn't give any exemptions for these. And are those exemptions really valid? Again, some of you are already hot on your keyboards. It's the DSM, of course it's valid. It's the standard. But is that really true? I mean, first of all, it's version 5, meaning there were other versions. If the DSM were perfect, they wouldn't need to make changes. As a matter of fact, in previous versions of the DSM, homosexuality was listed as a mental illness, and now it's not. So let's look at how reasonable those exemptions are. We've already established that DSM generally agrees with the common usage definitions of delusion, so 90% of our job is already done. The field of psychology recognizes delusions in the same way the general public does. So why those specific exemptions? Do they make any sense? Well, basically the reasoning they give is that faith is a delusion unless lots of people around you believe the same thing. But by that reasoning, if you were the only Christian in a Muslim country, then you're still delusional. Or if you're the only person in your state who thinks that women should wear burqas, you're still delusional. But then what the DSM is saying is that 90% of the time faith is delusional, except in 10% of cases when you are only delusional if you were standing in the wrong country. Does that make any sense? Now, something you need to keep in mind is the DSM is for diagnosing degree of mental illness. For example, a habit is only considered an addiction if it's harming you in some way. But even if it's not harming you, it's still compulsive behavior that you have difficulty controlling. What the DSM is actually saying when it gives exemptions for religious and cultural beliefs is that if lots of people around you share the same irrational belief, you'll probably get along just fine, and so they don't need to waste resources trying to fix you. Basically, you aren't crazy enough for them to have to deal with you. Also, the DSM does still consider extreme religious beliefs and cultural beliefs as delusional. So even if everyone around you believes the same fantasy you do, if you take it more seriously than they do, you still get an invite for some quality time with a shrink. So what's the conclusion? Mental illness is diagnosed on a scale, and only when it reaches an arbitrary cutoff point is it officially labeled and diagnosed. Outside of official medical diagnosis, someone who is just a little bit mentally ill is still mentally ill, just not to the degree where the system has deemed it needs to get involved. So yes, Faith is delusional. The only question is it, that guy's a little weird? Or, come lie down and tell me about your mother? Or, lock him up before he hurts someone?